The Kansas City Chiefs have made their second move of the day in an intra-division trade. We'll have all the latest here on the Chiefs Report. Welcome in, Chiefs Kingdom. My name is Jace Andrews, and let's dive right into the trade that the Chiefs have just made with the Las Vegas Raiders as the Kansas City Chiefs bolstering up that defensive line, trade for Neil Farrell Jr. in exchange for a 2024 sixth-round pick. Intra-division, two rivals make a trade. Well, not surprising on the 53-man roster cut-down day to see crazy things happen. But I want you to be subscribed so you know when crazy things happen. As when Chiefs breaking news happens, we're going to have a video out as quick as possible. So make sure you're subscribed. There's still a bunch of news to come out today about the roster cut deadlines, as we're nowhere close to that 53-man limit for the Chiefs. All right, let's dive into this trade. First, starting off with Neil Farrell, coming out of LSU, 6'4", a big guy, 325 pounds. Last year had 12 tackles, and I think this year is going to be asked a little more of with the Chiefs, as he's going to play a role in this line early. And that may be depth, that may be diving into the starting lineup. We don't really know. If you look at the depth chart right now, he could fit in a lot of places. Michael Dana, Derek Nottie, Chris Jones, and George Karlaftis. Obviously, Jones, the situation with him continues to get scarier and scarier as the days go on. And with this trade, it kind of seems like the Chiefs may have said, all right, he's not going to be here for week one, but we'll get more into that later. But before we get too in-depth on what this means for the rest of the team, let's talk about the players that have already been cut today. Reese Taylor, Anthony Witherstone, Joshua Kaindoh, Deon Bush, Danny Shelton, and Phil Hoskins. Those are 6 of the 7 players cut, as there was one more. Kekoa Crawford was also cut earlier today. The thing I take away, there's a lot of defensive cuts right now. So the offensive side, haven't seen that one stretched out too much, only just one wide receiver on that side. Defensively, you're losing quarterbacks, you're losing defensive linemen. It's all about trying to figure out how this defense is going to make it to the end of the season, to be honest. The depth is not necessarily there, especially on the defensive line, which is why this trade was made for Neil Farrell. I think it's a smart move, but I want to know what you think. Do you think that this was a good idea for both Veach and Reed to make this trade? I want you to type Y for yes or type N for no in the comments. Let me know what you think, because I personally think it's good. We had talked previously on previous shows about how the depth in the defensive line was not there. This kind of helps that. Neil Farrell, a guy that we'll kind of dive into more, but he's a bigger guy, and he's going to be kind of maybe a third down guy, coming in every now and then each series. But I want you to get in the comments. Let me know what you think, because I'm curious. Type Y for yes if you think it was a good trade. Type N for no if you think it was a bad move, adding Neil Farrell. So, where does Farrell fit on this line? Well, this is the line right now without Charles Omenihu and Chris Jones, as right now Chris Jones with the holdout, and Omenihu will be suspended for the first 6 games. So, you have George Karlaftis, Derek Nottie, Keandre Coburn, Mike Dana, and then Neil Farrell Jr. So does Neil Farrell fit into that starting 4? I don't know that he necessarily fits in the starting 4, but the Chiefs needed help. They needed help in any way possible, and Farrell kind of fits that mold of defensive line depth. We talked about a multitude of guys, but Farrell, I think, is a strong suit for what this team needed. If we take a look back on his kind of draft outlook from Nick Jacobs back here in 2022, he had this to say, quote, Farrell is a strong and powerful one-tech. He needs a handful of series off because of his size. He can take on a double team without losing ground. Farrell has good straight-up speed for 10 yards. He can keep up with a running back 20 yards downfield, but he doesn't routinely tap into that. He would normally just jog along as the play has cleared. Farrell has too much weight for his frame, and it limits the amount of snaps he can be on the field, and his effectiveness in a passing league. He can shoot gaps well and has a good rip/bull rush, but he tires more than you would like. Farrell is good depth. That's what I take away. He's a bigger guy. He's not going to play an every down type thing, but he's going to go in there in the maybe short yarded situations where you're going to see run, because as mentioned in that kind of draft report, he's not going to be the greatest in pass because he can get to the quarterback, but his real skill set comes in stopping the run game and filling those gaps, which he did last year for the Raiders. This year, he's going to be asked to do the same thing for the Chiefs. The big question I think I'm asking is, what does all this mean for Chris Jones? Because at this point, Jones is a no-go for week 1. We are just over a week from the season opener against the Lions. And it kind of hurts to not have your guy in there, considering what he did last year. He was the best interior defensive lineman in the NFL, one of the best defensive linemen overall in the NFL. I mean, you just look at these stats. You lose a guy like that who's getting to the quarterback that many times and has 15 and a half sacks. That's going to be really, really tough. And again, the depth is just wasn't there. I mean, this is the current depth line for DL line depth chart, but that's going to shrink down throughout the day with the 53-man roster cut. And so adding Farrell, he will obviously be a part of the 53-man roster. And he's going to fit in somewhere in there. We'll have to see Felix Anaduke-Ozoma. He could step up. I think George Karlaftis is going to need to step up. But without Chris Jones, it's really hard to kind of see what's going on with this team. And in all reality, how good this defense can actually be. With Chris Jones last year, I'd say they're about middle-of-the-pack defense, maybe upwards to close 10. But without him, I don't know if this defense is maybe even top 25. So adding Farrell Jr. gives you the ability to rest some guys, to hopefully let Karlaftis grow. We saw his last 10 games last year were really impressive, and see if he can build off that into the coming year. Now he has some backup behind him to hopefully give him some rest and keep everybody fresh on that defensive line. Like the video if you are intrigued by the final roster cuts, as we're getting down to the wire now, getting close to that roster deadline again. That's 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central Time. That's when the Chiefs will have to finalize their 53-man roster and have all cuts made. Let's go back to a previous trade that happened this morning. We talked about it, where Ihmir Smith-Marsette was traded to the Carolina Panthers for a conditional 2025 7th-round pick swap. Kind of a trade for nothing, but to me that just means that Ihmir Smith-Marsette was not going to make this team, and so may as well get something out of that. It sucks because I liked ISM. He looked really good in preseason, had good stats, had the form of a top 5 receiver probably on the squad. He'd be number 5, but he could be there. The only problem was he was doing that against the 3rd stringers and the 4th stringers, so you can't really take a lot of stock into how good he would be against the 1st string defense. Before I leave you, I want to mention one thing, as I know everybody's been waiting for it. Justin Ross, he's officially a Chief, has made the roster cut. He is on the 53-man roster. I don't think that's any necessarily of a surprise. Maybe I say that 2 weeks ago, a little bit more of a surprise, but right now it was kind of obvious Ross was going to be a part of this Chiefs 53-man roster. And so I'm excited for him because he has all the skill sets of a one wide receiver in this league. It's just about if he can translate that with the Chiefs offense. If you're not subscribed, subscribe youtube.com/ChiefsTV. We'll have more news and rumors as the 53-man roster cut down goes down to the wire today. Again, the cut is 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central Time.